Allah,
Oh, say, can you see?
Assalamu alaikum, brothers.
Wa alaikum assalam.
Let's go.
By the dawn's early light, what so proudly we hailed had the twilight's last gleam.
I've been on a journey across America in search of what it means to be a Muslim in this country. I've discovered that America has its own Islamic history. For more than 200 years, slaves were brought from Africa to work the southern plantations. Many were Muslims who struggled to keep their faith alive. With freedom came a mass flight to the cities of the north, and America's first Muslim movement, known as the Nation of Islam, was born. Out of this fractured movement, many found their way to mainstream Islam. And I've also discovered the founding fathers had read the Quran, and that surely influenced the founding document of American democracy, the Constitution. On my travels, people have told me about how they've had their identities as American Muslims challenged. But I've also heard stories of how people feel assimilated to this country, a belief almost that America and Islam belong to each other. And what I want to know next is whether something new is emerging here, something unique that could be described as an American Islam. To begin to answer this question, I'm in New York City, the epicenter of what's been called the clash of civilizations between Islam and the West. There is deep distrust on both sides. How can Americans trust Muslims who terrorize their cities? And how can Muslims trust Americans who bomb their countries? For Muslim observers outside of America, the invasion of Afghanistan in 2001, followed by the war in Iraq in 2003, has created tensions that show no signs of abating. For American Muslims, it comes down to loyalty. Can you be a patriot, an American and a Muslim? Farouk Muhammad was with the New York City Fire Department on the day the Twin Towers were hit. Tell me about the day of September the 11th, 2001.
It was pretty chaotic. People were coming out burned. It was like hell. We were choking. I thought I was going to die, literally. I was scared. I was scared to death. I thought this is it for me, you know? I couldn't breathe. I was suffocating. And I almost gave up. I didn't want to be in there. And at the same time, I knew that I couldn't provide any service to anybody as a paramedic, so I decided that I was going to see what I could do. So we grabbed some supplies, and we were given water, wet rags so people can cover their faces so they could breathe. That's where I spent the rest of the night treating injured people that were coming in. There were Muslims like me there, you know.
Who died?
And some that died. Definitely Muslims died there, you know, trying to help others, you know. And we're American just like other Americans who are not Muslim. And we were trying our best. And it hurt us just as much as it hurt them.
Did you feel that all Muslims in America were now tarnished by what had happened?
I mean, as much as I hate to say it, on that very day, while I was doing my work, you know, I had a uniform on that had my name on it, you know, Muhammad. And people were asking me what's going on, as if I had something to do with it. And that's when I started to really think about what happened, you know, and what may happen, and whether or not my own life is in jeopardy now.
How did you respond to people when they wanted to know about, is this what Muslims, you know, do?
Then and even now, when people have questions, my character and my personality is always to inform them as much as I can. No matter who might want to misconstrue the Quran, there's nothing in there that would ever justify any such act by anybody.
What's it been like working as a Muslim in the New York Fire Department after 9/11?
They were extremely supportive of me. They said, we know that this is not what you're about, and we know Muslims, and we know this is not what they're about. You know, this is just some heinous terrorist act.
After 9/11, Muslims were for a time regarded with suspicion, but they didn't hide. In fact, Islam has come out in force and attracted a wave of converts. Since 9/11, nearly 250,000 Americans have converted to Islam. I'm in Union City, New Jersey, which has a huge Hispanic population from everywhere, from Bolivia to Colombia to Peru. In fact, it's got one of the largest Cuban-American populations outside of Miami. And at the heart of this busy and thriving community are Hispanics who have converted to Islam.
That's Cuban. Yeah. Colombia's over there.
Yeah.
In fact, 40,000 Hispanics in America converted to Islam after 9/11.
And how do people respond when you're trying to spread the message? I mean, and da'wah to
We're not trying to
people in the
convince anyone. We
Yeah.
just want the information out.
Yeah.
That's it. Any misconception, any questions they have, it's there.
But they always listen,
Yeah.
which is what we're trying to do, always
Yeah.
to bring the message and show
Yeah.
them what Islam is really about.
Why do you think Islam is drawing Hispanic women in such large numbers? What is it
Well,
about?
I mean, nowadays, especially here, this area, a lot of the women, they don't even respect themselves, you know, their bodies.
Do you feel you're looked up to more as women because you are also sort of Muslims?
It's a big difference. ¿Quiénes son los musulmanes? Gratis, en español y en inglés.
Gracias.
You gotta say gratis.
I know how to say free. They're like,
You don't have
sorry,
to
the
pay.
camera's down, we can't take it.
But the big stereotype that people have, whether it's in this country or anywhere, is women are oppressed. You know, they're subjugated, they're this and
Well,
that.
I mean, look at me. I work, you know, I study.
Yeah.
You know, they're like, you're not supposed to do that. I'm like, who said I'm not supposed to do this?
Yeah.
And he tried to demystify Islam because the common person walking around does not know anything
Yeah, no.
about Islam, simply what they see on TV.
Which is
And
terrorism, violence, and oppression.
And so when they see us, they see all these things, and we want them to know who we are and why we are this way.
That's the thing. That's the thing.
For those who
People
studied,
need
of
to know.
course.
Yeah.
These women from conventional Christian backgrounds had converted around the time of 9/11, but hadn't seemed to have lost their Hispanic identity.
How do you balance all the different identities that you have of being Hispanic, women, Muslims, and American? Is that something that's easy to balance all these identities?
Well, first and foremost, we're Muslim. Before Puerto Ricans, before we are women. When you come to Islam, God provides you with your rules and regulations that help you to balance every aspect of your life.
But what I find interesting is, in America, how is Islam adapting to American life and vice versa?
Well, it does go in hand. In Islam, women have rights, children have rights, men, you know, parents. Everything is balanced. And this is exactly what America is about. And it's in Islam, if you really look deep into it.
I just wonder if that experience, though, in the years post 9/11, the sort of prejudice and ignorance, did it knock your confidence about being Muslim?
Actually, after September 11th, the universities were packed with people.
It opened the
Who-
door.
I've heard a lot of people say that it did open doors, that
They
it
were
changed
packed.
things.
They needed extra teachers to learn Arabic, to learn about the religion Islam.
doing this? Is
Yeah.
this part of it?
And as a result, many more people came into
They
Islam.
did, didn't they?
A lot.
Huge number.
And even women who were Muslim, who didn't cover it before, this was like a reason to do it. They're like, I am going to show myself. I'm going to show my identity.
I am not afraid to stand alone. I am not afraid to stand alone. If Allah is by my side, I am not afraid to stand alone. Everything will be alright. I am not afraid to stand alone. Gonna keep my head up high. I'm not afraid to stand alone. If Allah is by my side.
It's not just young converts who are spreading Islam, but those who are raised in the faith. And here the word is delivered worldwide in that most American of music forms, hip-hop. I'm meeting a Muslim boy band called Native Deen. Deen means faith, and the band are natives of America. Their songs are about Islam in the USA.
I am not afraid to stand alone. Keep my head up high.
You know, Islam has been in the black community for so long. You know, even talking about if you take it back to slavery days, that you would say so many of the slaves were Muslim. And you can ask almost any black person, be like, dude, you got a relative that's Muslim? Or do you have a neighbor? They at least have a relative, a neighbor, a cousin, or something. and they have some connection.
But in some ways, other Muslims have seen Muslims in America as not really practicing the faith, as though they've been isolated for many years.
That's the first thing somebody say, like, did you convert? I said, dude, I've been Muslim as long as you have.
Because all of you were brought up as Muslims. Yeah. As you've grown up as Muslims and brought up as Muslims, how have things changed for the Muslims that you grew up with over the years?
We have a lot of opportunities here. You can wear your hijab at work and, you know, pray in school and, you know, different things that have a lot of opportunities for Muslims. While also we have a lot of challenges because the Islamic traditions and cultures are, you know, not expressed in everyday life.
I think there's no one Muslim experience in America because, I mean, even for America, I mean, it's not just, it's one thing, American Muslim is one thing, like, what? Check. And then you're gonna say that these are Muslim rappers? What? When there's 50 Cent, when there's there's Young Jeezy, there's Lil Wayne, and you're gonna tell me these guys are rapping? And then after all that, you're gonna tell me they rapping about Deen and they're practicing? You're crazy. So they come in to just...
Let's go see
this, like, strange phenomenon, you know, that...
Okay. Are you proud to be an American and a Muslim?
The Americans are our people. You know, we may not agree with all of the policies that go on and the political things that happen all around the world.
But this is home. This is what we know. And I want to share what's best of our own culture to the rest of the world. But know that, you know, Islam is what is always dearest to our heart.
We can be proud to be American and Muslim.
There are some very positive messages about Islam coming out of New York, but there are some voices that are much more critical. I'm going to a fundraiser tonight in aid of a hospital in Pakistan, and the headline act is a comedy trio called Allah Made Me Funny. They don't pull their punches, they ridicule George Bush, and they attack what they see as sexism in Islamic culture. At the last minute, the organizers decided they didn't want us filming, but the comedians did. The compromise was we could film, but not show any faces.
They want you to believe that all the problems for the Muslim community have been caused by one man in a cave. I say think black. I think Osama did it. You know why? Because I've seen all the problems caused by one man in the White House. Look at people. Oh, no. They didn't know whether to clap or leave. Hey.
So I have a 10-year-old nephew, man. I love him to death. He's like my own son. But his name happens to be Usama. I walked up to him, I was like, hey, Habibi, you want to go out to Walmart? Let's go to Walmart. I'll buy you a toy. We get to Walmart, you know, he's 10 years old. He's running away. I can't call him. I'm sitting there, hey, Sammy, come here. He looks at me, he's like, no, my name's Usama! Hey, man, shut up! You know how many people hunt in Texas? Shut up!
Sisters in the dungeon. Sisters in dungeon, can you hear me? Hello. Assalamu alaikum. Only the ladies are laughing, by the way. Oh, the men are like, whatever. You guys are out of control, man. Especially the Muslim fathers of daughters. My daughter has to get married, oh my God! Like, how old is she? 7! She's gonna be over the hill in 2 years.
It seemed to me the laughter died away when Azhar started telling jokes about child brides. And at the end of the session, there was a bit of a scene. Maybe the material had touched a cultural nerve, or maybe it was too politically sensitive. But they wouldn't let us do our interview after the show, and we were asked to leave.
Okay, cool.
Bring it under here.
We had to improvise and avoid getting electrocuted to record this interview.
Man, sorry, guys.
Okay.
Sorry, guys. Bada boom.
Bam. In your face.
Do you all feel that there are certain areas as Muslims and as Americans that you can't stray into in terms of your acts? Because there are sensitivities that
No
are still
jokes
out
about
there.
fundraising dinners.
Apart from those.
I did it anyway. Okay. Oh, we're getting rained on, baby. Just saying prayers. I can't believe it's raining.
Is there much that's funny about being Muslim?
Dude, the world life is full of absurdity. Life is
Whether you're Muslim or
inherently,
not.
yeah, life is inherently hilarious. You just have to be able to take a step back and, you know, the fact that it's sad enough that non-Muslims, people of other faiths, people who are unfamiliar with Muslims have these stereotypes. But it's even sadder to me that Muslims themselves now have begun to embrace this media image of themselves as if we don't laugh, we're not funny.
Puritanical.
Yeah, go into any Muslim country in the world, man. We have some hilarious, you know, humor tradition. Yeah.
But what would you say to Muslims watching this wherever they may be, Pakistan, Nigeria?
Keep the faith.
What would you say about Islam in America?
Well, first of all, people need to realize that we're not this oppressed group of people.
Exactly.
Very diverse, very creative, very vibrant.
We're Muslim, we're proud to be part of that global family, but we're Americans, and we're proud of that as well. And we bring that show to the rest of the world, and people respond to it because it's precisely global, but also American, and they enjoy the comedy for that reason.
It's not often that I've had to do an interview in the pouring rain with people, but the organizers of that event didn't actually want us there, which is why we had to go outside, which is why we couldn't film any of the guests there. That was very weird, because that's nothing like what we've come across from anybody else that we've been talking to from the different Muslim communities across America, and it was just a weird form of paranoia that I didn't expect.
Thinking about the experience at the fundraiser last night has made me realize that there are some things Muslims don't want to talk about publicly. But there are politically sensitive issues as well. For instance, Pakistanis care deeply about the war in Afghanistan because they live right next door to it. But even these political sensitivities aren't straightforward. I've reported on anti-American demonstrations all over the Muslim world. And when I've asked people, as they're actually burning the stars and stripes, where in the world would you like to live? Overwhelmingly, they pick America.
Muslims are still coming to this country to make their home in large numbers. But not only that, of all things, a lot of them want to join the US military and serve in places like Iraq.
We don't just hire anybody. We hire people that are physically, mentally, and morally fit individuals, okay? So you fit that description, that's why I approached you. On the back of this here, Army Skill Training, I gave you my business card, right? I want you girls to go to the website, which is www.goarmyreserve.com, okay?
This is the Army Recruitment Office in Brooklyn, New York. It's had more success recruiting Muslims than anywhere else in the country.
How you doing, big guy?
Sergeant Campos?
Hey, how you doing, Rageh?
Good, how are you?
Welcome to our
Thank
station.
you very much, it's nice to be here.
Yeah.
So, we've set up for the interview with the Arab-American interpreters.
Yes, we were supposed to meet today, actually, but I actually spoke to my guys, and they decided not to do it because it actually brings danger to themselves and to their family here and overseas. So I really have to apologize to you, but I did speak to them, and they are willing to do a telephonic interview with you over the phone.
So there's no way that we could I could interview them on camera?
No,
but
I'm really sorry about it, but we definitely could make it happen over the phone.
Okay.
That's the only thing they're willing
So I
to
can
do.
interview them if they're not on camera, but they're on the telephone. I
That
can
is
still
correct.
ask them the questions I want to ask them about their work, their involvement in the military
Yes,
recruiting.
that is correct, and I don't have a problem with you doing that.
Okay.
If they don't want to be on TV for this personal safety, it's their decision if they want to do it or not.
Okay.
Okay.
So, okay, we can go ahead now, yeah? You can hear me, yeah? Yeah. So tell me, first of all, what do I call you? I haven't even established that. What do I call you?
You can call me Sergeant Ali.
Sergeant Ali, okay. Does that mean that you serve abroad? I mean, in Iraq? Or...
Yes, I was there.
You were in Iraq?
Yes.
How long were you there for?
About a year.
And there's a real physical danger involved for you and your family because you are an Arab Muslim in the army.
Yes.
How did you feel when you were talking to other Muslims, other Arabs, explaining what the army is trying to do in Iraq?
I feel fine with that. We gotta do what we have to do for a better future for our kids. But we gotta build it.
Sergeant Ali, how do you think people in the community here in America feel?
Muslims or non-Muslims?
Muslims.
Muslims mainly think me like I'm a trader. For instance, I was going to one of the mosques and one person, he mentioned that what I am doing is wrong, like you are not welcome here. I answered him, okay, if I'm a trader, why are you here in this country? Why are you using the benefits, education, medical? Okay, you can just leave. Nobody forcing anybody to stay.
And when you feel that kind of hurt, when other fellow American Muslims call you a traitor or tell you that you're not welcome to pray at the mosque, does that make you think, I will leave the army?
Yes, it hurts me a lot.
Do you feel that you have sacrificed your
identity as a Muslim in order to show that you are loyal to the American flag and the American army?
Sacrifice, yes. I am doing sacrificing right now.
Sergeant Ali, do you think that your colleagues understand the sacrifice that people like you are making?
Some of them yes, some of them no. Not all of them. Some of them get convinced, some of them not.
Sergeant Ali, thank you very much.
Anytime, Mr. Rageh, and inshallah.
Inshallah. Shukran jazilan. Ma salam. Bye.
I've stumbled on a real problem here. America has patriotic Muslims willing to fight for this country, but some, like Sergeant Ali, are thinking of quitting the military because they're taking risks and making sacrifices that aren't valued either by fellow Muslims or by army colleagues. The fact is, the threats aren't just coming from Muslims abroad. Some American Muslims are angry about their government's war on terror. I'm in Washington to attend a demonstration confronting one of America's most contentious human rights violations, the internment and treatment of alleged terrorists.
Shuffling in chains. This is one of the men America calls the worst of the worst. With shaven heads and beards, they are unrecognizable as Taliban or Al-Qaeda fighters captured in Afghanistan.
This is what our government is doing to human beings in our name.
Guantanamo Bay Naval Base is off the coast of Cuba. It holds over 250 men the government claims are among the world's worst terrorists. America is being accused of holding these men without trial and subjecting them to torture.
This event, right in the heart of Washington, has been put on by Amnesty International, and it's calling for the closure of the American prison in Guantanamo Bay. But I'm actually here to meet someone, one of the few people in the world who can tell me what it's like to be inside Guantanamo.
The Army's Muslim chaplain at Guantanamo was a Chinese-American convert to Islam, Captain James Yee.
When I was in Guantanamo, we had open-air cell-like cages. Today, from what I understand, most of the prisoners have been moved into cells like this.
Sort of 6 foot by 5 foot.
An average person can't even lay across the cell to do sit-ups, for example, in a cell like this. But as you can see, there's nothing in here except a bed
and a
toilet. And it's like a nightmare to come back into a cell like this because I spent 76 days isolated in a cell just like this. Under what was in my cell, 2 cameras that were on 24 hours a day. And the lights never went off.
The man appointed by the army to minister to Muslim detainees was himself detained. Yee had been an exemplary officer and had served at Guantanamo for 10 months. On November the 5th, 2004, he was arrested, charged with treason, and placed in solitary confinement.
It's horrible. Makes you feel very, very strange. Come on, let's get out. Yeah, let's get out of here. Go first.
At a demonstration in Washington, I met James Yee, who had been the Muslim chaplain at Guantanamo Bay. He thinks the US government betrayed him.
Why did the government want me being a chaplain in Guantanamo? Perhaps to say that we have Muslim prisoners, but we also have our Muslim chaplain, and maybe that would be an indication to the world that we were being very sensitive to the religious needs of these Muslim prisoners. We were treating them humanely. But I would learn that religion was actually being used as a weapon against these prisoners to break them. And because each and every one of them was a Muslim, that was something that went against the fundamental American value of religious freedom. When we heard about the Qurans being desecrated down in Guantanamo, that was happening when I was there. They were thrown on the ground, stamped on, kicked across the room. The investigations into abuses of the Qurans that have now been conducted by the U.S. Southern Command indicated that Qurans were even urinated on.
What happened to you at Guantanamo Bay for you to become an enemy of the state?
Initially, I was being accused of espionage, spying, and aiding the enemy. Now, these are capital crimes in which military prosecutors even threatened me with the death penalty. Why did this happen? I believe it happened because I raised concerns about abuses down in Guantanamo. I later learned that one of the first things that was said of me was, quote, "Who the hell does this Chinese Taliban think he is, telling us how to treat our prisoners?" Someone called me a Chinese Taliban.
You fought the case, didn't you?
Fought it tooth and nail.
And what happened as a result, I mean, in your case?
All charges were dropped. I was reinstated.
You didn't have anything to put on you at all.
I was reinstated as a Muslim chaplain. My record was wiped clean. And it was at that point that I then resigned from the military and received an honorable discharge.
Are you still patriotic?
I would say that I'm even more patriotic today. And that's because I am spending more time and engaged even further in doing what's best for my country, promoting these certain values. That's my goal in life, is to improve the society that I live in.
That night, I got a call about some startling developments in the Abu Ghraib torture case. Former inmates from Abu Ghraib prison in Iraq have hired an American lawyer to put Americans accused of torture on trial in America.
It says that 4 lawsuits were filed in federal courts, Maryland, Ohio, Michigan, and Washington. And basically, if the federal judges agree to hear these cases, it will make history. And the former detainees at Abu Ghraib will come to America and have their day in court.
I've got an interview with the lawyer who filed these lawsuits and is himself a Muslim. I want to find out if he, like James Yee, can still be patriotic when his government is doing terrible things to his fellow Muslims abroad. The lawyer in question is Sharif Akil.
What makes you think, Sharif, that you can bring justice in these cases here in America? What is it about this country that made you think that was possible?
The Constitution is designed to be indiscriminate as to who you are. As long as you're a human being, or if you are a human being, you deserve certain dignities and you're vested with certain rights. And America has that vision. It's not just America's vision doesn't stop at American soil.
Just talk me through some of them. What did you feel when you looked at
I saw literally an assault on a culture and on a religion. For example, this one picture here where there's feces on a person. I know it's a cultural taboo. This is beyond just being sadistic. There's an underlying meaning in there, extra profound to a person of Arabic origin.
They were tortured specifically in ways to insult them as Arabs?
Absolutely.
So it's systematic?
And this person here, you know, she's from a southern state. This guy was a security guard. They couldn't have just come up with this.
No. So what do you hope will emerge from these cases for America and for Muslims in America?
To restore her image. Americans are deeply disturbed by what happened. But unlike in Saddam Hussein, where if you get tortured, no one cares, that in America, there's a system of democracy where people are held accountable for their actions.
What inspires you in this quest, to seek justice? Is it being American that drives you on, or being a Muslim?
Both. I identify myself as an American Muslim, and I believe that the principles that are in my faith are entirely consistent with what the founding fathers envisioned with this country.
Throughout this trip, I've heard many Muslims assert their belief in the American Constitution as a blueprint for a just society entirely consistent with Islamic principles. Talking to Sharif Akil confirmed for me how true this is, that there's no contradiction between your obligations as a Muslim and your rights as an American citizen. I've heard the accusation that Muslims exploit these democratic freedoms for their own advantage. But I'm in Arkansas, in America's Bible Belt, to follow a story which contradicts this claim. Here, Muslims are taking the initiative to heal ancient grievances.
I'm in Fayetteville, Arkansas, population 60,000, and it's exactly how I imagine small-town America to be. But what's drawn me here is the story of how this town's tiny Jewish community had a problem which a Palestinian Muslim is helping them to solve.
This is the site of a building no one thought would be built. But two small communities of Jews and Muslims drew their resources together to build a synagogue in the Bible Belt.
Father,
Rageh, how are
Glad
you?
to have you here.
Very nice to see you.
Good to see you.
Good to see you. This is a fun. I'd come and pray here. In this setting, it's gorgeous.
That's true.
But when I first heard about this project, I have to say, you know, Palestinian guy building a synagogue in Fayetteville, I thought, what is the story? I mean, did you think it was a weird thing? Were you suspicious at first?
I wasn't suspicious. I just thought, we all thought it was just really wonderful. And I think part of it is that we're in a relatively small community.
What sparked in you, Father, to think, I've got to help the Jewish community here?
It really sparked in me the ancestry of our relationship, being descendants of the same forefather, Abraham. And I thought, in this day and age, we really need to reach out to our Jewish brothers in this community and build some bridges.
You two look like you could be cousins.
Except he's lighter than me. He got blue eyes.
He's handsomer.
I think I got it. I mean, but how do you think this project will change how the communities come together and, you know, respect each other's cultures and religions?
This year we've had several different programs that have for us to understand Islam, and so it's been very exciting for us to be able to embrace someone that has the stereotype of being an adversary, and yet.
And this country taught us that. You know, we have so much diversity here in the United States. It's a unique country. Our Constitution guarantees us freedoms and freedom of religion, especially, and we taught to respect each other.
In the 30 years that Fadl has been in America, he's gone from being an impoverished engineering student to a multimillionaire. He really is well connected throughout Arkansas. He's even got a school named after him. And Fadl's helped me realize a lifetime's ambition. He's given me complimentary tickets to the Rodeo of the Ozarks, the 5th biggest rodeo show in all of America. Amazingly, Fadl even has a say in what happens here.
What do you make of the fact that a Palestinian-born American is on the organizing committee of this event? I don't know what could possibly prove to you or me that there is nowhere in America or American culture that Islam can't be assimilated into. And yeehaw to that.
Do you really understand religious freedom? You get to go to church, you get to go to the mosque or the synagogue in this country. In Afghanistan, they didn't have that choice. But as Americans, it is our free right. Let's see what else in spring. It doesn't get any better than that. Now let's turn to B.J. Scott. Here's another pass to Clement by the bucket shoot. Sweet! Come on, that's the Arkansas! This is a tale.
I was enjoying the show, but I couldn't help wondering whether it was all as rosy as Fadl had described. Hadn't he ever witnessed discrimination against Muslims in Arkansas?
Yes, every once in a while, the Americans look differently at, say, a woman that is wearing a hijab. But eventually this will fade away. They'll get used to it. And don't underestimate the American intellect. They do realize that good quality that comes out of our faith. And if you look at the communities that have Muslims in it, you'll find it very peaceful. There are no drugs, there is no crime, and as smart as they are here, they do realize that. And if you follow what Islam says, you're going to get somewhere.
The rodeo last night was great fun, and it was my first one. But it was also really surprising to me, particularly the words of the MC during the opening ceremony, which I didn't expect. And it was when he said that the great thing about being an American is that in this country, you have the freedom to practice your religion, whether it's in a church, in a synagogue, or a mosque. And he actually said that to the packed audience in a mosque.
And for that to be said in the rural South, in a place like Fayetteville, I just didn't expect it, and I think it's great. It seems to me that there's a great deal of religious tolerance for people of all faiths in Fayetteville. I'm meeting someone who has a keen insight into how Islam coexists with other religions across the Middle East and America. She's Dr. Moja Kaf. Moja was born in Syria, raised in New Jersey, and moved here 12 years ago to teach at the University of Arkansas.
There's a lot of shared common grounds with, believe it or not, with conservative Christian families and with observant Jewish families. But that's quite similar to the social landscape that the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ had in Medina. I mean, the world was not Muslim. There were Christians and Jews, but there were also just simply the people of the age with their variety of goodness among them also.
Are you optimistic about Islam's future in America?
The multi-ethnicity of American Islam is one of its great strengths, and the fact that there are mosques where it's sort of balled up into this ethnic thing where we must do Islam exactly like this, or Arabic style, Islamun Nizam or whatever, doing it like, but they worship Islam as they see it, like handed down the faith of our fathers. And it's this father worship that they're doing. It's not even about God anymore. They have made an idol of their faith. They've made an idol of its forms and its particular practices. And guess what? That's not what God gave us in the Quran, and that's not what Prophet Muhammad gave us. So if it's a God-focused, if it's about worshiping and knowing God, then of course it can happen in America, and of course it can happen, in ways that look a little different or a lot different.
Moja's insistence that Islam in America may be very different from Islam elsewhere is interesting. I think she's saying that Islam is too male-dominated, and one distinctive feature of Islam in America is the role women play in it. I'm in Chicago to meet Dr. Laleh Bakhtiar, classical Arabic scholar and author of 30 books on Islam. She's caused a storm with a radical new English translation of the Quran. Much of the anger has come from abroad, but at home, the Islamic Society of North America has sanctioned this controversial text.
Laleh, tell me, why has the translation of the Quran got international headlines, a lot of them hostile?
There's one particular verse, it's in chapter 4, verse 34, where it has been traditionally interpreted that husbands have a right to beat their wives. I could not understand that this would be the God that I know and love. So I did a great deal of research and found that it's a command the Prophet never carried out, so no one else should do it either.
How did you translate?
I translated it the way the Prophet showed us through his behavior. He had difficulty with his wives. What did he do? He went away. And the exact same Arabic word that means, that you can say to beat, also means to go away.
And that word is idrabun.
Idrabu, yeah, idrabu.
And why do you think people reacted with such hostility to your translation here? Was it because you're a woman? Was it because you're an American Muslim? Or what?
Well, it could be that I was an American Muslim woman. I mean, it could be all of those things. But I was amazed that women, there are many women in the Islamic world who actually believe that women should be beaten. This is not a feminine issue. This is a human rights issue. The voice of the Muslim woman has not been heard throughout the 1400 years of Islamic history. And it's only when you live in America that you are empowered to express yourself. This would not have happened any place but in America.
Why is that?
They're not open to women's interpretation or women's understanding of things or the woman's voice. It's not open, it's not free.
It's no wonder that it's Chicago where Laleh is shaking things up. This city, and one man in particular, Wallace Dean Muhammad, has played a key role in the story of Islam in America. He led the largest conversion of Americans to mainstream Islam, but he didn't believe any one individual should be in absolute control. Wallace Dean made all the mosques autonomous. He encouraged people to read the Quran and think for themselves. I met him in Program 1, and he inspired me with his highly optimistic vision for the future of Islam in America.
America has survived slavery, it has survived racism, and the proof of it is Obama, okay? Okay, so America, maybe even 20 years ago, maybe we would have a lot of doubts. But in 2008, I don't think we have much room to doubt that America is the best place not only for Christians, but it's the best place also for Muslims to establish the life that we want, that God wants us to have, that's given in Quran and Muhammad the Prophet.
Sadly, Wallace Dean Muhammad died during the making of these programs.
He is scheduled to depart at 2:30.
I'm nearing the end of my trip, but I have to visit Dallas, Texas to get to the bottom of another intriguing statistic. Texas has one of the largest number of converts to Islam in America, more than 100,000, most of them women. Many are former Baptists like Nicole Queen. As a celebrity photographer, she enjoyed the glamour of Dallas nightlife, but was drawn to Islam.
It was so different than what my life was like, and that was the draw. It was like I could be somebody totally different. I could be a more respectable kind of girl, a more valuable girl.
Why did you want to change your life in that way, though?
Like, if a girl my age looked at my life, she would say, why would you want to change this? It was very glamorous. You're around the top people of Dallas all the time. That's who you work with, celebrities and musicians. So you got invited to all the parties because they want you to photograph them. They want them to show up in all the magazines. And all the magazines are calling you because your pictures are hot. And being around those kind of people 24/7, it's like you start to live that way too, where it's like all that matters is what do I look like and how much skin can I show and how hot am I, because nobody's going to pay attention to me unless I look like that.
You've chosen to, practice and express your faith in a quite conservative way, by wearing the hijab. Why do that?
I'm going to be more conservative and I'm going to cover the right way, but I'm going to have an American style with it. And it seems that more people look at my religion in a more positive way and they're more welcoming and they're asking me more about my religion, which is a great opportunity for me. And it makes them feel like there's hope for them, like they can join this religion and they can represent the religion in a classy way.
You know, you can be stylish and you can be beautiful wearing the scarf and representing your religion,
but they can still be American. And when you go to the biggest mall in Dallas, I see hijabi girls everywhere, and I see lots of white girls wearing the scarf and stuff, and it's like it's like spreading, you know? It's the fastest growing religion in the US, and a good thing spreads quickly.
But do you feel that by becoming Muslim, you're any less an American?
I don't feel like I'm any less of an American. I feel like all I did was change my religion. You know, if someone starts the Pledge of Allegiance, you know, I'm facing the flag and my hand will be on my heart.
This is something I've heard throughout my trip. Just about all the American Muslims I've met are loyal to the flag. I think this is unique to America. You certainly won't see it in Europe, and I think it's an essential part of what I understand as American Islam.
What Americans feel united around is a sort of civic religion, and the focal point is the American flag. That's what they all pledge allegiance to and feel that they have a loyalty to. And Muslims are just the latest group to feel that they are being integrated around and into this civic religion.
So, is American Islam really a combination of what is symbolized in the Stars and Stripes and what's laid out in the Quran? There are many Muslims here tonight celebrating American values on the 4th of July, and they mean it.
Summer night on the 4th of July, and we're hanging outside. I take my kids downtown.
I think the American Muslims that I've met have really stressed to me their love and admiration for the American Constitution and the Bill of Rights. And as American Muslims, they recognize that there's a match between these principles and the principles of Islam, which are peace, tolerance, justice, equality, and freedom. And it's more than likely that the founding fathers appreciated this about Islam. That's why Thomas Jefferson had a Quran, and that's why I was able to see Islam depicted as a great world civilization in the Library of Congress. Congress. But I know after 9/11 and the shock of that this isn't how most Americans see Islam today. But what American Muslims believe is that despite all the things that divide Islam and America around the world, here there is much more that these two things share.
That's great.